So here are all of our skills that we're going to be able to perform by the end of this chapter here. Again, nothing should really be too crazy that we really haven't seen before. We've already kind of talked a little bit about absolute cell references. We've talked about how to format some of our numbers. We know how to add formulas like sum and to create differences, quotients, and products. And so really, the only thing that we're really going to add a little bit more to this is start to add to some charts. So here we have column and we have line. We can actually then move data into Word as well. So we might show a little bit of that. But if you would like to follow along here, I'm working in the chapter 2 file called expenditures. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and go through the document here that they have and kind of highlight some of the skills that they're talking about in here. Ultimately, again, we've kind of seen some of these that we've kind of run into before. Here you can see in this one, city development is cut off a little bit. This is called the truncation, to where you can't see the full value inside of the cell. And over here, we have these pound signs as well. This is another way of showing truncation, that the data that is in the cell is too large to fit in the current width or height of the cell. So we can go ahead and we can change some of those. Again, we talked about changing row height the other day, or sorry, row height and column width. Again, my preferred way of doing this is going here in between the middle and double clicking so that it does the auto fit. You can drag them as wide as you would like to here as well, so that way you can see everything if you would like to. You can also, again, if you wanted to right click, you can go to column width here too, and you can change it that way too. So there are a variety of options to be able to go ahead and figure those out as well. So after I've expanded both of those, I am going to go ahead and use my autofill button. Not only does it work for formulas, it also works for like specific days of the week and months. And here we're going to actually use it to go ahead and take the first quarter and expand these all the way over to the second, third, and fourth quarter as well. So Excel kind of understands some of these patterns that you're establishing with the data, and it can actually use those in order to help. I am going to go ahead, excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of my row 2 here, just so it's a little bit easier to read. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of my column headers here. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this wrap text feature here. And again, you can kind of see that it just allows some of our additional material to just sit a little bit better inside of our cells. And then for this example here, I'm going to go ahead and not only am I going to center vertically, so now we have vertical alignment as well in Excel, but I'm going to go ahead and center them horizontally and vertically in here as well. Again, we've already kind of talked about some cell references. In this example here, we're going to introduce what is called an absolute cell reference. And I have examples already written up here on the board, and it uses the dollar sign. So in this case here, I'm going to show the percentage of expenditures by department. So I'm going to note first, I'm going to need to go ahead and create a sum so I can figure out my totals here by categories. So that way I can do this real quick. So what I'm going to do is equal sum, set up my formula here to go ahead and calculate the sum. All right, I'm probably going to have to go ahead and auto fit all of these columns here as well. So that way we can see all the values. But here I can see I have about 30.5 million. So I'm going to need to use this number in all of my calculations in order to figure out the percentage. So I know for the legislative department, I have this 1.4 million, and I need to divide it by this one. And then for city manager, I have 3.5, and I need to divide it by this one. So our relative cell references, if we had put them in like we've previously done, so this number divided by this number, so F3 divided by F11, right? If I was to hit enter, it works for that one. But if I drag my autofill down, I now have an error. And that's because my cell reference, instead of staying at F11, has changed to F12. So in order to set this up as an absolute cell reference, we have to put a $ in front of the column and a $ in front of the row. So where this intersects, we're telling in our formula that it always has to use this cell, and that's what the $ are saying. The $ in front of the F says we always use column F. Then the $ in front of 11 says we're always using row 11. So when we have both of those selected, it's saying like wherever those two intersect, that's the cell that we always have to use for our formula. So if I click enter here, again, I get the same response as before, but now if I drag this down, it will now do all of them for me. And it's always going to use F11. With those cells being, go ahead and convert those into decimals or a percentage. So underneath our normal here, like we've done like the $ here, we can go ahead and just do percentage here. In this one here, in this example, it wants you to show the 10th place with the decimal. So if we wanted to increase our decimals here, we can go ahead and increase it 1. So now we can show the 10th place as well within our decimals. We can do that with any number format that we really want to. So if we wanted to go ahead and highlight all of these here, and we wanted to hide the decimals, we can actually get rid of all the decimals so that it's only numbers being shown. Same thing here. If we wanted to get rid of the $ in front of all of these, we can go under our cell styles here, and we can just, oh, sorry, wrong one. We can choose comma. And so that will actually take away then the $ in front. So we only have a $ at the top and a $ at the bottom. Again, we can go in, we can change our borders here. So we have a top and double bottom border here. And if we wanted to change the colors of them as well, I can draw that in there. Draw it in there. Oops. So now I have those formats as well. So using the totals here, again, we can now add in another formula. So this one here is going to be the average one. So same thing, to start this formula, we do equals, and then we can type average. We can choose average here, and again, now we need to select our range. So instead of including the total in here, we're just going to figure out the average for the different departments. Okay, so same thing, if we set up our cell references here and hit enter, we can see that the average expenditure by department is about $840,000. And then I can use my fill tool. I can drag that all the way over, and now I can find the average spending per quarter and the average department total. If we wanted to figure out which department spends the least amount of money per quarter, we can use the min function or the minimum. Right? So it will find the smallest value in a range. So if we do minimum, again, highlight all of those different categories within the first one here, we can see that $321,000 is the least amount spent of all departments in Q1. Again, same thing. We can use that autofill, drag it all the way over. We can do the exact same thing. If we want to figure out which department is spending the most or what is the highest value within a range, we can use the max function. Same thing. If we highlight the exact same range here, we can find that 2.4 million out of the city services is the largest amount of spending in Q1 by departments. Again, now we can drag that autofill all the way over and it will find them all across the board for us. So the beauty of this too, again, they're not much differences as far as the formulas. They're just helping you find different data within a set. Okay. Let's see here. We have our min, our average, our max. Same thing too. If all of a sudden we found out that something changed, so say we need to go in and turns out we actually spent, let's say, $400,000 and $275 in Q1 for legislation, and we hit enter. It now updates all of those cells. It updates all of our formulas, which makes it really easy. Once we get into charts here, which I'm about to do in just a second, if we were to go ahead and update some of those as well, it would make those changes. So what I'm going to do in order to make my first chart here is I'm going to go ahead and select this range here from department down to the end of Q4. Knowing what data to select will take you some time to get familiar with that. It's not instantaneous. It will take you some time to figure out how you need to select what data in order to get your charts to manipulate the way that you want. But if I select from department down to the bottom of Q4 here, I have now a quick analysis tool that comes up, or Control Q. If we look at this, we have formatting. So if I wanted to do data bars, here if I hover over them, we can set these up here as well. So if we wanted to set up data bars, it's just a nice visual way of changing the data within the table to allow us to see essentially where the most amount of money is being spent. We can set up some custom features here as well. So if we wanted to show the top 10 in each category, we could do that. If we wanted to set up, we could set up data labels that basically say, like, if this value is over $1 million, make it bright red. So that way, anytime data changes to being a value over $1 million, that cell will now be flagged as red. That would allow anybody that's looking at these charts or these data tables to say, like, oh, there's a red flag already right there, because we have that kind of set up inside. We can go over here to our charts. So if you wanted to see what charts would look like with the data that we've selected, right? So here we can see, here's a cluster chart. We have stack charts, what that looks like, different types of stack charts. You can go under more here too. So if you would like to see additional types of charts that may be available based upon the data that you've selected, Excel will kind of predetermine some charts that you may want to consider looking at. For this example here, again, you can go to all charts. It doesn't make sense for some of the things that we've selected in our data set. Like this radial one here makes no sense. If we were to go into a sunburst one, that kind of makes sense. Like, I actually kind of like the way that one looks. But for the example here that we're going to be choosing, we are going to be using a recommended chart. We're going to go ahead and use this like stacked cluster chart, or the cluster column here. So underneath here, we do have a plus sign now that we've added a chart. Under our plus sign here, we can actually add data labels. We can add a data table if we want to. We don't really have much for error bars in here. But again, we can go ahead if we wanted to label our axes. If we only wanted to label just the primary horizontal, we could do that. If we wanted to just only name the vertical, we could do that. We can go under our paintbrush here, and they have some, again, some additional ones that have already been selected. So if we want to have some different visuals or different appeals, like here, I'm going to go ahead and choose this nice neon colored one, right? And again, you can change some of these up top here. Now you'll have a chart tools, a couple tabs, just like we did in Word when we were making tables. We have chart tools. We have a design and a format one here as well. We can change our colors. So if we wanted like specific color schemes, we could play with those. If we wanted to then go ahead and move this chart as well, sometimes we want charts onto a different page, so we can click Move Chart. We could put it in different into different sheets, or we could create its own sheet here so that it's standing alone. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it into a new sheet here just so you can see expenditures chart. So what I'm going to name my sheet, click OK. Now this is an individual chart that stands alone. Okay, so that's, and if we wanted to go ahead and change our chart title here, like expenditures by department. So we can go ahead and name it. We click off of it, click back onto it here. Again, we can go in here if we want to format it different. We have some different types of word art that we can choose. So if we wanted to make it kind of stand out, we can also go onto our home tab here. And if we wanted to go ahead and make it nice and big here so that it stands out as a chart title, we can do that. We can go under design here if we wanted to change our chart type, or if we want to select different data, if we wanted to add and move different things. So if we don't want our grid lines here, we can choose those. Again, this is pretty customizable here, and that's pretty easy to do. If we wanted to go and add all of a sudden a pie chart, so maybe this one, I'm just going to go ahead and pick department totals and go ahead and select those. Again, we can go into our quick analysis. We can go into charts. I'm going to go ahead and look to make a pie chart here. Boom, I have my pie chart. If I wanted to get a little crazy here, right, I can find different types of pie charts that I want to use. If I want different colors, I like kind of the monochromatic colors. We can do that. If you want to, sometimes under pie, there are different ones. So if you want a 3D pie chart, we can make a 3D pie chart. If you want to increase your label size or change how they look, you have a bunch of options up top here. If you right click on this, you can even go in even deeper. So if you wanted to change like what your fill color looked like for the background, you wanted to add a picture, you can add a picture background. So let's go ahead, we'll find, do I even have any pictures on here? I don't. How about, sure, let's add a Microsoft Specialist one in the back. So now it says Microsoft Office Authorized Testing Facility for our background. We can do that. We can go into, if we wanted to change our outlines, we can do all of that. Again, if you just right click and go to format plot area, you can now have this whole option that shows up here as well. So if you want to go back to the gradient, you wanted a pattern fill. Again, all of this is customizable, relatively easy. You can change your titles, you can change your data labels, you can word art, you can print specific charts if you want to as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move this because then it's easier to. All right, if you move this, you can choose to only print this page as well, or this sheet, I should say. So if you wanted to change that under print, right, instead of print active sheets, you can print entire workbook, or you're only going to print what is on the one sheet that you've selected. You can set those up there as well. If, let's say that you wanted to use this chart, copy it, and if you go into Word, you can paste it into Word here as well. Eventually, we'll be able to go ahead and update these. So if you bring them in, there's actually a refresh data button right up here on the top of Word. So if you were to update something inside of Excel, say you made a mistake in Excel, Microsoft Office is very much like Google Docs, where it links all the different software together. And then you can actually then just create one document. And if you update one document, it will update all of them. So maybe for a cumulative project, we will actually integrate PowerPoint, Excel, and Word all together in a formalized project. So you can actually see how you can connect all three pieces of these software together. Okay. Ultimately, that is all of chapter 2 there. If you have specific questions, please let me know. Otherwise, you have the rest of the time in order to go ahead and complete chapter 2. Everything should be available on Google Classroom now. You have your instructions. For those of you working online, you will have your files there as well. You may just need to convert them over. Again, some of this, I'm not going to tell you to use Google Spreadsheets, but again, I don't know how limited 365 is going to be in some of this either. You should be able to go ahead and use a lot of the charts and tools like that. The functions for sure are all available in 365. But again, once we start getting into specific charts, 365 may not have all of the options. So if you're running into those speed bumps, just let me know and we'll cross that bridge together.